Now I'm gonna vent after I do a review of Backrooms, but before I get through my rant, first let me just sing my praises for the film. Now, I do love this movie. I watched it it was my second rewatch last night because unfortunately, part of the reason for my rant is I had an awful theater experience on opening night for seeing it, so it kind of tainted my experience, and then I just didn't feel like I was equipped to really set my thoughts on it appropriately because I just had that god awful. That is my dog's paw in the background. Nice. So I just could not sing my praises for it or give it the, justice it deserved. So I rewatched it last night, and I'll just vent about my frustrations with overall theater etiquette and everything. But with that being said, now the way, my God, do I love this movie. Right up there with Obsession. Okay, maybe not right up there with Obsession, and if someone were to ask me if I loved Obsession or Backrooms, even though I equally loved the movies, even though I loved Backrooms, Obsession is definitely for me the better film, mainly because it's not based on an existing IP. It's just, an original story. Well, not exactly an original story, but it's told in a very unique way and very thought-provoking, nuanced way that gets the audience talking. Not to say that Backrooms won't get the audience talking, and there were some very interesting, ideas in this movie, but it's ultimately, it's kind of like an artistic person trying to bring something that he created. Kane Parsons, again, 21-year-old here, directed this movie, and yet he knocked it out of the park. I could not tell that a 21-year-old kid directed this, well, adult, I should say, and yet he crafted something that could have been produced by, someone in their prime that normally produces horror movies. But yeah, Backrooms feels more of like in line of like a mainstream IP that's just now getting a big screen treatment. And that's partially why my first theater experience with this movie wasn't as fair, because a lot of fans were there and a lot of people were hyped for it, myself included, but it did overall taint my thoughts on it, in my opinion, so I ultimately leaned more towards Obsession. Now, even though I got my thoughts all collected and now I can, judge this movie, appropriately, it took me a bit. But let me sing my praises now, because my God, does this movie absolutely rip dick. Now, let me just get this out of the way first and foremost, because my biggest praise for this movie, and just the Backrooms in general. Now, before I get this out of the way, even though I'm not overall familiar with the overall lore of Backrooms, I do understand why people loved it, especially when it first released. And I did kind of do some research and rewatch the original videos just so I can get an idea of what to expect. And it goes without saying that if you were worried about the, YouTube translation being, wonky to the big screen, well, you can rest assured it absolutely knocks it out of the park with the atmosphere, because from the very beginning in the first and second act, it does an excellent job just building up this very atmospheric, suspenseful environment, especially when you eventually do get to the back rooms and everything. Now, obviously, you get the character stuff and the story, but the back rooms itself is just, not to mention just a practical set, so the set designers knocked it out of the park with this one, and really crafted something that just feels both familiar and eerie. Like, everything about the back rooms, like, it is a familiar area that's on, like, mundane stuff or just run-of-the-mill stuff, but something about it is very off. So you can't help but feel, like, uncomfortable, or it... And, I mean, the movie just really masterfully balances out just the uncomfortable environment that these characters are in, and you just get, like, this overwhelming sense of paranoia that something or someone is in there with you, just throughout the entire scenes with the Backrooms. Just everything with the characters and investigating, looking around. Every moment you are on the edge of your seat thinking like, oh, what's that right there? Is that a face? Is that an arm? What's that in the background? Ooh, what's that noise? And yeah, everything about the back rooms when any of the characters are in it, easily the best parts of the movie because, like I said, everything about it just makes you feel uncomfortable or something's off, something's not right. And when the characters keep going, and it's just an endless maze essentially, so every single moment you just feel like you're getting dragged down deeper into this hell, this eternal abyss, and it's very well done. It makes you feel claustrophobic. Like, even if these areas are very wide open, just this office area in particular always has this sense of like both paranoia and claustrophobia. It balances out all too well, maybe too well, in my opinion. Like, everything about it just felt right. And obviously, like I said, you get the character moments. Clark, I'm not gonna... Okay, I gotta shout out to the actors, obviously. I would love to pronounce their names correctly. I know I'm gonna butcher their names. I've already gotten crap thrown at me for butchering people's names before, especially at work, so I'm gonna try not to do that just to spare the actors, but I gotta sing my praises, especially for the main character of Clark. He's been in some great stuff, and the fact that a 21-year-old is directing him, and he is just oozing this desperate man. Like, the main story for me, it's kind of like it's a descent into madness. He's an architect. Obviously, I've seen the memes, so I know people are giggling when I say he's an architect. And everything that, and he's going through a messy divorce. I'm just going to talk about the story a little bit with his therapist. And, you know, it's just him battling through this alcoholic struggle and he's part of a failing shop owner. So he is just at the end of his rope here. And, you know, since he's an architect and he's in the back rooms, you just know he is just trying to question everything. And, you know, for an architect, you're looking at the back rooms, everything about it feels off. And he is trying his damnedest to convince people, convince his therapist. Also, when he brings his friends in there, he's trying to convince them that I want to investigate it. And it just spirals out of control by the end of the second act. And even his therapist, to an extent. Again, I'm not going to mispronounce the actress's name because I don't want to do that. But I got to sing my praises for her because, you know, you would think she just plays like the motherly figure that, you know, she's trying to believe Clark about the back rooms but doesn't, and then will be proven wrong later. No, she also has a backstory with her mom being mentally ill and losing her family home. Like, everything about the character, you get to root for them, and I love that. Even like these two small characters that show up only to get killed later on, one of them in a really disturbing fashion, and one of them you just see their head chopped off, spoiler alert, and they get small moments to shine a little bit. Not a whole lot, but they do get their moments to shine. But yeah, the big win for this movie in and of itself, and the ultimate deal breaker here, because without this, the movie probably would have plummeted, was the backrooms itself. And like I said, I already sung my praises for it. Since 80% of the movie is done in the backrooms, the other 20% is about the character stuff and Clark trying to convince people that it exists. And all that being said, he now goes to the backrooms and then is just essentially descends into madness. And it leads to the third act, which I'll get to in just a little bit, because even though Obsession, like I said, the reason why it's a better movie is that from beginning, middle, and end, it keeps a consistent quality to it, I should say. I hate saying that, I hate saying quality, but it keeps a consistent tone and quality, whereas Backrooms, it builds up suspense really masterfully, sets up the story, and builds up everything perfectly well, and then you get to the finale where you can't help but just feel mildly disappointed. But there's also some disturbing elements in there I'll get to in just a bit, but like I said, by the time that third act comes through, you're just like, it's a little disappointing. Not to mention, this movie doesn't have a whole lot of jump scares, which I fully expected, so credit to Kane Parsons, the fact that he restrained himself decently well when it came to the jump scares. Now, to get into the final act, there are creatures in the back rooms, and they're like templates, I guess you can say, of them trying to copy a person, kind of like the back rooms where you can recognize what it's trying to do, but it's slightly off, and it makes you feel uncomfortable or eerie. The creatures in this, which are 3 humanoid creatures, oh man, it leads to a kind of a disturbing scene where he scalps one of them or slices one of them open and says you can eat them, and it's just this like cotton candy fluff, whatever the heck it looked like, straight fiberglass, if I'm going to be honest. But and obviously in the Backrooms lore, there's the creature elements, and you know, the humanoid creatures, yes, you can tell it's kind of human, but their facial features are all messed up and distorted and very off, very eerie. And part of the other stuff I really love about this movie, probably my number one favorite moment from the film are the, you know, the handheld cam stuff. That's probably like the biggest standout, mainly because it leads to a very big moment that really made me uncomfortable and really kind of made me jolt out of my seat, where one of these creatures, first you're in an uncomfortable area, I'm just going to spoil this moment real quick, and then you hear like a weird noise, a light flips on, you see one of them, but it's kind of in the background, and then you hear footsteps, and then you see just this very grotesque thing just come stomping towards the main character. And I mean, I legitimately kind of like recoiled. I kind of tensed up a little bit because I was very uncomfortable. This was on first watch. Obviously, I'll rant about my experience later, but it was still a very uncomfortable moment. Now, with that being said, like I said, there's creatures in the back rooms, and even though a couple of times it did leave me tensing up and being very uncomfortable and kind of scared, and this isn't me trying to be tough either. This is just me voicing my thoughts and opinions and everything about this creature. Obviously, there's the bacteria creature in the original Backrooms, but you get to Captain Clark. Spoiler alert about the big creature. It is essentially a bigger version of Clark, the main character, as a pirate. He's a pirate for his shop and everything, and it's just a more tall, lankier version of him in a more monster form. It's like, yeah, it's very strange. Granted, on second rewatch, I kind of warmed up to it, but it didn't help the story, because the finale kind of sneaks up on you in a way, but you're also kind of just like, okay, is this movie going to wrap up? And it does a little bit. It's not like it drags, but it's just a moment where you're just kind of questioning when the movie's going to end. And yeah, unfortunately, it is just a massive chase sequence of the therapist and Katie, I'm pretty sure is what her name is, and Captain Clark just going after each other. And again, you're part of the back room, so you're just, you know, and you do have suspense. Credit to the sound engineers for my theater, because the thumping noises, the noises of the creature are very unsettling, very atmospheric, and very uncomfortable. But the overall appearance, even though there's like 1 or 2 creepy shots of the creature, once you get a closer look, it is silly, it is a bit stupid, but there are a small handful of moments that really made it uncomfortable. But again, the finale is where it just kind of doesn't fall apart, but you're just like, oh, darn it. I didn't want that to happen. I didn't want this to be just another chase sequence of a monster, but it is. And yeah, it is disappointing, but like I said, if it wasn't for the Backrooms itself generating all this suspense, then the movie would have flopped, in my opinion. Like, if they did not knock it out of the park with the Backrooms in and of itself, then the movie would not have been that great. But like I said, I still really love this movie. The big scene stealer is obviously the Backrooms themselves. There's a lot of cool moments, a lot of frightening moments, a lot of uncomfortable moments, moments that'll freak you out, make you tense. It is very entertaining. I was very impressed. So credit to Kane Parsons. I cannot wait to see what he does next. If it's another Backrooms movie or another horror movie, whatever it is, Backrooms is a very great first step into his career as a filmmaker. So I cannot wait to see what both Curry Baker and Kane Parsons do. They both knocked it out of the park as, small time, well, now they're big time YouTubers, but for the small screen, I guess I should say. They were doing some stuff for the very small screen, your phone or iPad, for YouTube. Having them both do big theatrical films, I'm very proud of both of them. I'm very happy that both movies succeed in their own right, and they all crafted two movies that easily make it to my favorite of the year. But yeah, now that I got my thoughts out of the way for Backrooms, let me just vent real quick on why my theater experience was bad. Now, this is just a rant to anyone that went to the Cinemark in Fort Collins. Yes, I'm naming the location on the opening night of Backrooms because I'm outing all of y'all. I'm sorry to say. Packed theater, I was looking forward to it. Let me ask you this. If you go to the theater, do you always react when something even as minor happens as like a small jump scare or like a noise? Do you always react by saying out loud in a quiet theater, "Oh hell no. Oh, don't do that. Oh hell no. Don't do that. No, don't do that. Don't do that either." Because for 2 hours, that is what you were doing the entire time, being very overreactive. At one point, I kid you not, someone full-on belly screamed. Look, I get it, it's a horror movie and everything, but good lord, you do not need to belly scream in a freaking theater. I don't care how scary the movie is. You just don't do that. Unless you're like 5 years old and just can't handle horror movies, why would you go to a horror movie? That's like me bringing one of my very good friends that hates horror movies, hates me for even trying to invite her to a horror movie, but yet if she went, I guarantee you, she would have either walked out or squealed like a little squirrel or something. I don't mean to out that girl in particular. Still very open to go see movies with you and everything. It's a horror movie too, so let's go see a horror movie together. I want to see if you'll actually like genuinely scream more. But that's besides the point. On top of that, very reactive over, like, even moments in the Backrooms movie, and this is, mind you, on opening night, so the first time I saw it, so every single small thing, people were just reacting or going like, what the heck was that? What was that? It got really annoying towards the end because the ending does build to something, and even though for me, I kind of knew where the ending was going, I'm not going to spoil it. I will spoil it. I changed my mind. Where therapist, actually I changed my mind. I don't want to spoil it because, like I said, go to the theater and watch this movie. You got to support it. It's really good. I know I'm kind of tardy to the party with this, but just trust me. If it happens to be showing, just go see it in theaters. It's really good. But it's an ending that I kind of expected where it was going, and it wasn't that big of a surprise, but yet for several people in my theater, I mean, and I'm trying to just focus in on what it's trying to build up to, and when it finally gets to the reveal, so many people just screamed, "What? How? What? That's it? That's how it ends?" And then they're like, "Oh my god, that's so..." The amount of people that walked out of that theater that said the Backrooms was not good, or it was boring, it was stupid, I would feed world hunger. I mean, if I had, $100 for every person that said that walking out of that theater, I'd have a lot of money. That's besides the point. I would have a lot of money in my wallet for the amount of people that said it. Another thing that's aggravating, I honestly think, this is going to sound a little bit controversial, I honestly think theaters should enforce a door close policy. That the second the movie starts, door closes. Because this is at the beginning of the second act, right at the end of the first act, group of teenage girls, maybe high schooler girls, and they looked exactly what you would expect. I mean, Tumblr, I hate to be going off of, cliches and stereotypes, but man, they looked like every basic high schooler, bully, blonde, Tumblr, had those dumb, Crocs on. Like, I'm telling you, it was. I don't believe in stereotypes, but man, they were adding fuel to the fire here, and they just came waltzing in, and I had their phones on bright, trying to find their seats, and that's where I just really wish the theaters. And of course, at the end of the movie, they're like, that didn't make any sense. It's like, no shit, Sherlock. You came in right at the end of the first act where it was setting everything up. Of course it didn't make sense. Plus, you probably watched, Love Island for 7 seasons. I don't know how many seasons that show is on for. I could care less. It's just, dry humping each other. But, oh, you get a nice good look at my dog there. But yeah, it's just so aggravating to me. The fact that people just came in, and the fact that the theater allowed that. We had 20 minutes of previews, and yet the theater allowed this very big group of teenage girls to just waltz right in like they own the joint. And I'm like, and with their brights on too. Like, I was like, oh my god, I cannot focus on this movie. And again, with the audience, this girl right next to me would not stop reacting over the smallest stuff. I'm telling you, every small creak, they're like, she, full volume, was like, what was that? Oh, hell no. Don't do that. Don't do that. And it got so annoying. I was so tempted. I don't want to be that guy, but a couple of times I did just shoot her a look like, hey, come on, let's be quiet here. Looks ain't going to do anything, clearly, because she just went right back into doing it. And kept doing it the entire movie. So I walked out, and every small thing about that movie, because it was just followed up by constant commentary. It's like, if I wanted the commentary, I would buy the Blu-ray. I would wait for this movie to release on disc, if I knew that was going to be the case. But thankfully, I rewatched it last night and got a better theatrical experience, as it should have been. People reacted when they were supposed to. They were quiet and respectful. They were only loud during the trailers, which, fair, yes, it's the previews. Everyone can be loud during the trailers. But during the actual movie, they were respectful, quiet, and courteous. They reacted when they needed to. They were uncomfortable when they needed to. They laughed when they needed to. So it all felt... It felt like a regular theatrical experience, which is such a shame because it just sucks that it was opening night, that everyone was so hyped for this movie that it just tainted my first experience. And I just really hope and heavily encourage people, if you go to the theater, please be quiet and courteous. Someone like me could be there and just wants to sit down and watch a movie. Not to mention, I got done with a 10-hour shift, and it was at one of the very busy locations that absolutely railroaded me with a plastic sandpaper dildo, and I just needed to go to the theater to, relax, let off some steam, and plus I was excited for this movie, and it's just, why do people think they can talk, especially during a horror movie? If I wanted the commentary, I would get the movie on disc and watch the director's commentary. If I wanted the audience reaction, I would go to the audience reaction page on YouTube and watch that. I want to sit down and watch a movie. I'm not telling you how to behave. If you want to act like a complete imbecile, go right ahead. Just so you know, I probably will be, you will be outed on YouTube, especially if it bothered me and annoyed me. I know I've been talking about this for 8 straight minutes, but it is just something that just really aggravates me. Also, on top of that, the phones, shocker to no one, the group of teenage girls or high schoolers, those girls annoyed me. First of all, showing up late and texting their boyfriends on top of that. You don't have your phone on full brightness. I'm sorry. That should be another thing that theaters should do. We should have a no cell phone policy. Put a cell phone in the bin and sit down and shut up. If you can't handle the movie without being on your cell phone for 30 goddamn seconds, then get the hell out. Pardon my French there, but I just have to rant about that because I'm a huge believer on the theatrical experience, and this is why people don't go to the movies anymore, because of people like this. When I go to the movies, yeah, I'm with my friend, like, we'll whisper to each other. We don't just, like, yeah, me and my buddy, I'm going to keep his name anonymous here. I'm going to call him Travola. Kind of like John Travolta, but because I don't know, he likes John Travolta, so I'm going to call him Travola. But me and him, we love going to the movies together. And if there's something we want to say or laugh about, we'll whisper to each other. And I mean, like, we will whisper. Like, damn near close to kissing each other. I'm not homo or anything, but we will be whispering to each other and making sure we do not annoy people around us. But again, I'm not your father. You can do whatever you please, but I'm just fair warning to anyone that's watching and has gotten this far in my review. You will be outed by me if you do, not in public, but on a video. You will be outed. And I sincerely hope that people watch this and really consider, if I'm going to talk or if I'm going to react, maybe I should wait till streaming. Or maybe if there's no one around me, or if it's an empty theater, I'll go right ahead. But if it's a crowded theater, maybe I'll hold off. Anyway, that's about it. Thank you so much, everyone, for if you somehow made it this far, God bless you all. But that's about it. Obsession and Backrooms easily knocked it out of the park. I loved both films. I just need to talk about these two in particular. Loved them both. They're all solid. Go see it in theaters. Also, be good people. Be quiet and courteous in the theater and don't hop on your phone. Also, don't be the stereotypical teenage girl that wants to text her boyfriend during all the minutes of the movie, because that's really annoying. Also, don't show up to there's a number of things I can list. But this review is already long enough, so I'm just going to say, see ya, have a good summer, I'll see you in the next review, see ya.